Hi, everyone, and welcome to the webinar. It is Kimberly Beer here to talk to you today about measuring your email marketing. So we're going to be specifically covering in this webinar all those reports that come with your Constant Contact account so that you can make better marketing decisions based on the metrics that you're getting from emails that you have sent in the past. And you can start looking at how to pivot your marketing so that you get the results that you really want to get from your email marketing program. Again, my name is Kimberly Beer. I have been with Constant Contact as a solution provider for going on 9 years now. I love this company for small businesses. You cannot find a better solution for people wanting to do email marketing, which is still incredibly effective. And hopefully the fact that you're on a webinar to learn about email marketing reports today means that you already know how effective email marketing can be, and you're wanting to improve your email marketing even more. And that's what your reports allow you to be able to do. So we're going to dive right into the meat of this presentation today. And I'm going to cover First of all, I'm going to start with covering some things that you need to know about email marketing. And these may be a repeat, or they may be new for you, or they may be a new perspective on something that you've already understood for quite a while. And then we're going to dive right into the reports and take a look at what all of those metrics mean that you get from Constant Contact, or at least the most important ones, and then how to make better marketing decisions based on the metrics that are currently in your account. If you need to get in touch with me, my contact information is here on this slide. If you are listening to this presentation live, then you can feel free to ask me questions as I go through. If you're listening recorded, you can always reach out to me at Kimberly@MidnightProductionsINC.com, or you can call your Constant Contact representative to be able to help you with any questions that you have about Constant Contact reports. All right, so why do we even care about metrics? What is the reason for even looking at these things? Well, there's a lot of reasons. It can certainly help you guide you in making better marketing decisions. But you do have to know what metrics matter. You do have to know how to use those metrics or the data from them to make decisions. And you also need to understand that the most important piece of any email marketing puzzle is actually getting people to click on things. Because when someone clicks on something within an email, that means that that person is taking an action. And not only have you reached them enough to get that open, you've reached them enough to get them to create a conversion. And that is super important. So we're going to talk about how to make decisions that are really geared towards getting those click-throughs, which should end up being at least qualified leads, if not sales, for your business. So the first thing I want to go over before we dive into the actual reports is I want to go over the 4 qualities of a good email marketing strategy, and then the 4 qualities of a good marketing email. Because to be honest, the metrics that you get in your email marketing are really contingent on these 8 things, 4 of them being for your overall program and 4 of them being specifically about the emails when you're sending them out, so the individual emails. For a good email marketing strategy, in order for these metrics to really make a difference to you, your list does need to be permission-based. Now, I know I'm really preaching to the choir when it comes to Constant Contact customers, because Constant Contact does a really good job of letting you know in advance that you need to get people to opt into your list. In other words, you don't just sign people up because they hand you a business card or because you got a list of people at an expo. In other words, it's permission-based. Somebody does raise their hand up and say, hey, I want to continue to get email communications from you. Jennifer, I'm going to cover removing the undeliverable emails in a moment. So you have a great question. I know everybody has that same question. How do I get rid of these bounces? So I will get there. But the permission-based is so super important, because if you are adding people to your list that are not there willingly, it's going to toss all your metrics off. So permission-based is critical. You also need to have targeted content. The number one reason that people unsubscribe from an email list does not have to do with being over communicated with. That's usually what everybody thinks it is. Oh my goodness, they're unsubscribing because I'm sending them too many emails. That's not really the case. Why people unsubscribe from any email list is because they are not getting relevant content. In other words, they feel like the content that is coming to them does not apply to them or their situation, or it is not what they signed up for, which it falls into the next quality, which means that you need to set clear expectations. So those two kind of go hand in hand with each other, because when you sign someone up in the permission-based email system, you should let them know what you send out in your emails, how often you will be communicating, and then make sure you follow up with that. Now, as small business owners, we all get busy. I do the same thing. I let my email marketing plans slip and slide on occasion, right? That it happens, but the more you can be consistent, which is that fourth quality, it means the better your email marketing will work, and also the more relevant these metrics are. So just to review, make sure you have people opt in, make sure you're sending content out that is targeted, which may require you to segment your list into different segments so that content remains targeted to the group that's getting it, because we always want those emails to be relevant. Set clear expectations from the beginning about what you send out in your emails and how often you will be sending them out, and maybe even who they're coming from, as I'll get to the reason for that in a moment. And then also consistently stick to those expectations that you set. In each individual email, there are an additional 4 qualities that you need to kind of check off before you press the send button. The first one is ask yourself, is this email valuable to the people that I'm sending it out to? In other words, does it have some intrinsic relevancy and value to them? Are they going to find it useful? And value is not always associated with money. So kind of set that belief aside. Value can be in the information in the email. It can be in the relationship that you're building, or it can be in the inspiration of what's inside of the content of the email. Value can be different for different audiences and different segments on your list, but it's really important that that email have a value for your customers. And of course, it can also be a monetary value. So value can be tied to the dollar figure. It could be a discount or a coupon or a special or something along those lines. The second thing you need to ask yourself is this email branded? Am I showing up in a way in my client's inbox as the way that they know me? In other words, is the logo there? Are my colors there? Is my brand identity there? Does the email come from a name that they recognize? Am I showing up in the way that they would recognize me? Because another big reason that people unsubscribe from lists is because they don't recognize the content that's showing up from them as someone that comes from, or some business that is friendly. They don't connect it with the list they signed up for. This happens to people who are just using kind of those base templates and not adding anything further to it, or they're using this really generic from name or from address that their client doesn't associate with them. Let me give you a for example. So you may know me as Kimberly Beer, and you may know me as associated with Constant Contact because the way you found this webinar was through their website. My business name is actually Midnight Productions Incorporated. That's my official title in the world. If an email showed up in your inbox that was even something super valuable that I had already told you I was going to send, and it came from Midnight Productions, you might delete that email because that's not something until this moment in time you would have associated with this webinar. However, if I show up as Kim Beer Constant Contact or Constant Contact Kim Beer, then you might open that because you will resonate and recognize that. So just be really careful with your branding. It's an important consideration, especially when you're wanting to get more opens in your email. One of the number one ways to get more opens is to have a recognizable from name, because it's what we look at first when we consume email. We look at the from, then we look at the subject. So that's really important. You also need to keep your emails concise. That one's kind of a no-brainer. Everybody's reading their email on their phone these days, and really long emails no longer work. And then also actionable. One of the hugest values to email marketing for you as a business is being able to look at these reports. But if you don't have anything within your email for people to do or click on, then you're not going to be able to get good data from the reports that you send out, because you're not going to have any idea of what people are interacting with. And that is the one metric within any email marketing program that is A, the most important, and B, the most precise. Open rates can kind of get fudged, and I'll explain that when I talk about open rates, because of how it's determined that an email is opened. So actually more people can be opening your emails than show up on your reports. But the click-through rate is always going to be super accurate. So you have to have things for people to click on in your email. With that said, you have to keep that to a certain number. So, and once you get over 5 links or clicks, your click-through rate will drop off dramatically. So when you're creating your emails, you want it to be actionable, but you want to limit the number of choices that you give people for taking action. To be honest, you need to keep it to 1, 2, or 3. So I prefer one very clear call to action with maybe a sub call to action. And then if there's a third one, then you'll start to see things fall off. So 1 or 2 is better. 3 would be the most. At 5, you're starting to make a mistake. So keep that in mind when you're creating things for people to do in your emails. In my opinion, and the way that I see email marketing work for my clients, shorter emails with fewer things to do are much, and sent more often, are preferable to longer emails with more choices sent less frequently. So hopefully that will make sense to you. All right, when you open your email marketing report in Constant Contact, and the way you get to that is you just simply click on any email that's already been sent. Obviously, this report is not going to be there for emails that are in draft mode or that have not been sent. So this was an email that I sent yesterday for my Make It Happen Monday group. So I send out an email every Monday with a little video in it for one thing you can do better this week to market your business. And this is the actual report that came back from that email. So this email was been sent out for less than 24 hours. So it has an open rate of 33.2%. And we can see that the majority of people who are receiving this email are opening it on a desktop. 27% opened it on mobile. That is super important because it tells you where people are reading their emails. Now, I sent this out specifically so people would get it at work. So the desktop thing does not surprise me. I would wager that if I sent it at a different time of day, I possibly would have gotten more mobile openings than I did on the desktop. But since I sent it at a time when it would be most likely to be opened on a desktop while someone's at their desk, right? The report shows me, who I sent this to, what the subject line was, and the from line. It also gives me a link here that I could click on to open the email, or I can preview it there to see what I sent. So that's the first metric I always take a look at, is the open rate. And we're going to dig into what makes a good open rate here in a moment. Then there's the click-through rate, and the click-through rate is always going to be less. So it's showing up at 14.5 at this particular moment in time when the screen capture was taken. We'll see here another report. There were 199 emails sent. We had 12 bounces, and Jennifer, I'm going to get to you to be able to tell you how to remove those. In a short snippet, you would just click on that number 12 and it would open up a report and show you those people. And then I'm going to go over also the bounce types, which is really important. There were 187 deliveries, which those numbers should add up to 199. 125 people had not opened it at the time that I pulled this report. Now that number is going to continue to change over the next few days. People may have deleted it, or they may have just put it to their later area since they know it's going to be a video that they need to watch. And then underneath that, we can see unsubscribed and spam, and both of those are at 0. This is a highly opted in list. So if I see an unsubscribed or a spam report here, I'm going to be super, super interested in why that happened, because this is a list that people can only get on once they've been invited to it. So I should never see anything in those numbers. A typical unsubscribe or spam rate is going to be super low for any opted in list, but it will happen. And I'm going to talk a little bit about unsubscribes and how to think about them in a moment. So this is the first page of the report. And then you can see here we can do some sharing of the campaign in a couple other places. That's for a different webinar. When we scroll down a bit and go underneath those social things, we can also see what links were in the email and how many people clicked through on those links. So in this case, we have a YouTube video that was featured in the email. So people are going to click on that to play the video, and you'll see there were 7 unique clicks, and 70% of my distribution of my clicks were on that particular item. So 7 people, and if I see, anytime you see a blue number, you can click on it and see who it was. Whoops. I can't click on it here because it's a screenshot, but if you click on it on your report, it'll tell you who those people are. The same thing goes, there was also a link in there for people to go to an event calendar to be able to sign up for future events. So 3 people clicked on that. So we can see here that two actionable items in this email gave me 2 different results. And obviously the obvious action item was to open up that open up the video, and I can see that definitely got the most clicks. All right, so let's break this down and talk about each of these individual metrics and what they really mean. So when it comes to opens, and this is the rate that everybody tends to get the most concerned about until they've done email marketing a while, and then we're interested in the clicks. But open rate is important. It gauges what the interest level is. It'll give you a report card on what your subject line is and what your from line is. When people open emails, there are 3 factors that really figure into determining whether or not they'll actually open them. The from is number 1, because that's what we look at first when we're reading our email. The second one is the subject line, and that one figures in pretty heavily. In other words, if we don't think that subject line is going to be important to us, then we won't even open the email. The third factor, which is a true X factor these days due to mobile technology, is the time of day that the person receives that email. So there are times of day when, as email consumers, we are much more likely to delete our emails. Usually early in the morning or late in the day, we tend to go into more of a delete fest. So You have to look specifically at your market though, because that is honestly a wild card when you try to make it generalized. So let me give you an example of that. I did a class for a group of mommy entrepreneurs a few years ago. These are ladies who have made a product around motherhood, and then they formed this co-op where they all market their products through a co-op store in Kansas City, Missouri. And they hired me to come in and give them a education on how to use email marketing. And in the midst of the conversation, one of the ladies piped up and said, I found out something really interesting. We were talking about open rates, by the way. And she said, I developed my product. It's for mothers who are breastfeeding straight home from the hospital and getting adjusted to the breastfeeding routine with their new baby. And I developed it with my first baby, and then my second baby, I couldn't sleep at 3 a.m. one day. I was up, I fed the baby, I couldn't go back to sleep. I just couldn't do it. So I decided I'd work. So I sent out an email, and I made more sales from that email than I had ever made before. And why? Because her audience had the people who needed her product were probably up at that same hour with nothing to do but read their email. So the time and day was a huge factor there in her being able to get a good sales turnaround. What you have to do is find that sweet spot for your particular business. And it's going to be different for each of your businesses. Each industry's kind of got its own thing. If you're wanting to reach people while they're at work, it makes sense to send your email during work hours. If you send it after hours, they may be more likely to delete it or not even see it, or it gets batched in with a bunch of other emails where it's like, I don't want to go through all of these. And if the moment comes to say, I don't want to read that, marketing emails tend to be the first thing that get deleted, right? So in creating your open rate or trying to raise this open rate, you're going to be really super mindful of the fact that those three factors, who it's from, needs, and I've already talked about that, what time of day it showed up, and then also the subject line make a huge difference in those things. Open rate tells you how interested people are in your subject and how recognizable you are. Industry averages run between 8 and 28%. A list like this one, which is the highly opted in list, typically is going to range towards the higher end of that. A list that is much more broad and less frequent in communication will range towards the lower end of that. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at that open rate. Click-throughs are much more important, in my opinion, to measure how much success you're having with the email content itself. Let's face it, we are all in this business to make conversions, whether that conversion is creating a lead that's going to lead to money, or whether it's an actual sale that is going to lead to filling up our bank account. Businesses, or even if you're a nonprofit, you still have to associate around money. Businesses are in this to make conversions, and click-throughs really show us where those conversions are at when it comes to email marketing. They're going to measure your success of your content of your email. How engaged are people with what you are saying? And then they're also going to help you identify the people that are on your list that are the most ready to buy or are buying and most likely to interact in the future. Your best source of new business is always your most current engaged business. So the industry average here ranges between 5 and 18%. So this email falls right into that. I would expect this click rate to improve over time. So when you're looking at these metrics, we're looking at metrics in an email that's been out into the world less than 24 hours. And I really recommend that before you close the door on your email metrics, that you give it at least 72 hours to catch those people who maybe want to read it later, especially with this click-through rate. The open rate may be more settled in the beginning of the email, but people will come back and go watch this video, and they may come back and open up your email. One of the really interesting behaviors around humans is that they will save emails, that a lot of people will save emails and go back even months later. I have people that if I go back and look at the metrics on emails that I sent out a year ago, sometimes those metrics will increase 6 months, 8 months, 10 months into that email's life cycle. So in cases like this, where you're sending out something informative, like an informational training video, people save those and they will go back and watch them again. All right, our did not opens. These are people that we need to re-engage with. These are the people that didn't connect with the subject line, maybe didn't recognize the from, or there wasn't a specific reason. We weren't catching them at the right time of the day. Something was amiss. Now, Constant Contact lets you do some really interesting things with did not opens these days. When you're sending out your email, you are going to have an option to resend that email to people who did not open it after a certain number of days. If you have really important content or something that you feel is super valuable to your audience, I recommend clicking that box. I don't know as though it would work on every single email that you send out the door. I think there's some that you don't need to click that box if they're not going to be super relevant. In other words, we don't want to get in the habit of spamming people with emails over and over again if they didn't want to open it the first time out. But on really important stuff, or things that you feel your audience would find super valuable, checking that box can make a big change. And you can, if you have Email Plus, even do A/B testing. So you could take even that group, make a new list of them, and test a different time of day, or you could test a different subject line in addition to going back and doing that resend to did not opens. Here again, it's going to be the opposite of the open rate. The industry average is going to range between 72 and 92%. Opt-outs. So these are people who are going to unsubscribe from your list. When someone unsubscribes from your Constant Contact account, they are offered the ability to provide you a reason as to why they are unsubscribing. And you can find those reasons if you click on the number, if it's highlighted in this little box when you see it. Those reasons are truly enlightening. There's a list of reasons that they're given, which is why they tend to always be the same thing. Like, I received too many emails, or the content was not relevant to me. And then they can also put in a personalized statement. My favorite story from this is I was teaching a Getting Started with Constant Contact email workshop, which was all day long. And I taught the people right before we went to lunch how to pull this report on their unsubscribes. And one of the ladies who was selling Bibles went back and pulled her reports, and she had some really entertaining reasons as to why people unsubscribed from her list. And the most entertaining was, I have too many books already. So I thought that was cute. At any rate, it's a great way for you to go back and take a look as to why people say that they're not wanting to stay on your list. Now, that being said, let me give you the industry average here. It's usually less than 1%. And you may need to see you may need to adjust your mailing strategy if you see that number rise very much. Unsubscribes are much better than spams. Spams are a whole nother can of worms. But let me talk to you a little bit more about unsubscribes and how to think about this particular metric in your email. If you are keeping your email clean, in other words, you're providing valuable emails, you're keeping your lists targeted, you are are making sure you keep your commitment to communicating with people. You've set clear expectations, all those things I went over in the beginning of the webinar. If you're doing all those things and people are unsubscribing from your list, I take a real attitude of bless and release. That's not a client that was for you. Not every consumer out there that could use your product, service, or donate to your nonprofit is meant to. And when people unsubscribe from your list, a lot of times they're self-selecting out of that process. And you as a business owner should just kind of be like, yeah, that's all good. Sometimes in this unsubscribe report, there will be shocking surprises. You will click on it and you will see a customer that you talked to yesterday and seemed completely happy, and now they've unsubscribed from your email list. Again, I encourage you not to take that personally. A lot of times if you reach out to that individual, you'll find out there's really a reason that has nothing to do with your business for that. Maybe they were subscribed under 2 email addresses and now they opted out of one. Or possibly they're all good with you and they don't necessarily want to receive your emails. So don't take it personally when you see a good client show up in the unsubscribed area. If it's something that really is amazing to you and you're worried about it, then pick up the phone and talk to that person and say, hey, I noticed in my reports that you unsubscribed from our email list. I just want to talk to you about that for a moment. Is there something that we did wrong, or is there something that we can do better? So feel free to talk to those people. Constant contact, by and large, is used by small businesses. That means you know your customers. We're not talking about trying to use constant contact here to email 10 million people. Most of you guys know your customers on an intimate level and can pick up a phone and call somebody when that unsubscribe really stands out to you. But just it's okay. For others of you, you have businesses where unsubscribes are to be expected. Let's say you're a real estate agent and you have people that are coming into you to either sell or buy a property. At some point, hopefully you're going to convert them. They're going to buy their property, and then they're probably not going to need to stay in touch with you. And your emails are going to become less relevant. At that point, they will probably unsubscribe from your list, and that's to be expected. So this number is not nearly as concerning as that spam. Let me roll back here because I don't know if we have a slide on spam. Spam in and of itself is a bad thing. That means somebody clicked on the button that said, we did not sign up for this. And if you get a lot of spam reports, you will get in trouble with Constant Contact. One of the representatives will be on the phone with you to say, hey, we see a lot of spam in your spam reports on your account. We need to make sure we look at your practices for getting people opted into your list. So you will find that if this number starts to get high, and it should be way less than 1% of your list, that you will start to have some issues within your Constant Contact account. This can be avoided, spam can be avoided by setting those clear expectations. With that said, there is times when you can get unsubscribed or spam reports just because somebody misclicked on a mobile phone. Because of the way Google sorts people's mail these days, like they put that stuff in a promotions tab, and anytime you are sending an email that has an unsubscribe option at the bottom of it, like my Apple Mail on my phone puts an unsubscribe link at the very top of that email. It says, this email comes from a list, unsubscribe here. And occasionally I have been known to touch that when I really didn't mean to. I know I'm not the only person. So sometimes on those unsubscribes, they are accidental. The spam reports are rarely accidental. You actually have to pretty intentionally click on the spam piece. So you will not, by the way, be able to see who marked you as spam. That is hidden. One more thing on those for unsubscribes and spams. Roll back to that slide again. Once someone has unsubscribed from your list or reported you as spamming them, you will not be able to send to that address again. they have to physically go back to one of your forms and sign up again. You cannot resubscribe them. You can't re-upload them. If they are in a list that, let's say you pull your contacts out of your QuickBooks every month and put them into Constant Contact just to catch the new people, you can upload your entire list. And if somebody on that list has unsubscribed, you won't be able to email to them, even though you just uploaded them as a new contact. So your account will remember what email addresses have unsubscribed or marked you as spam. If someone comes back and subscribes with a different email address, or you have them with two different email addresses and they only unsubscribe with one, then they'll still get the email at the one they didn't unsubscribe from. I hope that makes sense to everybody. All right, bounces. Jennifer, we're finally to the bounces section. So your bounces are where your emails were not delivered. So those are bad addresses, people that are on vacation responders, people who have firewalls that won't let your email through. There's a multitude of reasons as to why people's emails bounce. And the industry average rate is between 2 and 14%. If you don't clean your list up, however, it can get much higher than that. I've seen lists come to me with new clients that have crazy high bounce rates because they've never gone on and cleaned out the bad addresses. So to do that, you're going to click on any number with the bounce next to the bounce. So the one in the report here is 12. So if I were to click on that 12, the report on the next page is what I would get. And this is actual a live report, so I blurred out the people's names and email addresses. But you'll see over to the right, you'll see undeliverable, suspended, other, suspended, non-existent. So the non-existent ones often are ones where you've misspelled something, like Gmail. Somebody has a Gmail account and it's spelled G-M-A-I or I-A-L instead of A-I-L. So go in and look at the email address itself and see if there's some reason that you can discern. A lot of times you can pick those up pretty quick. Somebody's misspelled their name. I mean, we all make typos, right? So a lot of times those non-existent ones, whoever signed up just made a typing error in doing so. The suspended ones and the undeliverable ones are a little bit different. So the undeliverables mean that address like no longer exists, or it was good at one point in time, but now it's not. And so you need to look at that and establish whether or not that particular email, there's a problem with the email, or maybe there's a problem with that customer and the email address isn't good anymore, or you have a new one or a better one. The suspended emails are ones that have been undeliverable on more than one occasion in a Constant Contact account. And there can be times when that's not just your Constant Contact that account that couldn't deliver. That may be that person is subscribed to multiple lists on various email or Constant Contact accounts, and the email address keeps showing up as undeliverable. Constant Contact will suspend it. And if you have addresses that are showing up as suspended, that you know are good addresses and you've checked with the person and you're pretty confident of that, I encourage you to reach out to customer service at Constant Contact and talk to them, because they have the latest, greatest information on what is the current trend with that suspended piece, and they can do a little bit more research for you to possibly find out why those things are happening. So reach out to that. So Jennifer, to remove the ones that you want to remove, you're just going to select them over here to the left by clicking the box. And when you click the box, it's going to have a check mark. Then you will click on actions, and then under actions, there will be an option to remove those. You can segment this list down by clicking on, the different types of bounces. You can look at bounced here. If you have a ton of these, you can do a lot of things. If you want to export them so you know who they are before before you delete them, you can export them as a CSV by clicking Export All, or the chosen ones here under Actions. So that should give you a good concept of how you might use the bounce report to facilitate a cleaner email list. I really recommend that you pick once a quarter and come in and clean up your bounced emails. You don't have to do it every single time you send out an email. That would get way too cumbersome, especially if you send out multiple emails every month. But I do recommend keeping this clean. There's a financial reason for keeping it clean as well. Constant Contact does charge you by the contact. And you don't want a whole bunch of people that you can't email on your list. So make sure you get in here and keep this relatively clean over time. All right, let's talk about how to make some decisions for your marketing. So Jennifer has a question here on the undeliverables. When you delete them and they are in a work database and re-import them, will they go back in or unsubscribe? That is a really good question, Jennifer. So I can tell you how to avoid that. So if you went into them and unsubscribed them, they won't come back in as subscribed even though you delete them. I believe, and I can't dive out of this to check, but I believe that when you click on that, it will give you the option of permanently deleting them or unsubscribing them, kind of putting them off to the side. So I think you can avoid that. I'm going to tell you to give customer service a call just to check and double check on what I just told you. I've never run into an issue where that became a problem. So I'm assuming that when you delete them, they are gone and then you don't have that particular email address coming back in and mucking up the works later on. If you can't find the answer from customer service, please drop me an email and I will call my representative and find out exactly the answer to that question. All right, so let's talk about making decisions based on whether when your opens are low, when your clicks are low, when your clicks are high and your opens are high, how you can utilize that information to create a better marketing program. So if you have low opens, make sure that you have that recognizable from name. That is the number one thing I really encourage you to do. If you are confused about how to get that recognizable from name, start asking your customers how they identify you. Sometimes they don't identify you, like I said, by your business name. They identify by a person's name. Sometimes the person sending the emails out is not the most identifiable person in your organization. Maybe you have one person who is more identifiable that goes to all the trade shows, say. Here's a crazy one for you. I have a client who takes her dog. She has a emotional support dog. So he goes with her everywhere, including to her expos and trade shows. And he's very cute. And people get to know him. They recognize his name. So for a while, we had a strategy to send emails out from the dog using the dog's name. We got more open rates with that strategy because people were like, oh, I wonder what Ringo has to say today. You know, I mean, they didn't recognize Donna. They didn't recognize the name of the company, but by gosh, Ringo made a real impression on them. So sometimes that from name can be something that you haven't even thought of. Subject lines are important. Some subject line tips. Numbers are really helpful. Oddly enough, odd numbers are more helpful than even numbers. So 3 reasons why is better than 4 reasons why. So use numbers, do questions. Questions are always a good thing. Things that express a timeliness factor, like get it now or, hurry, but make sure your email content backs that up, because nothing's more irritating than open up an email that says last chance and you're going to get 10 more emails that say last chance, right? So don't fool with your customers either. Subject lines, when it comes to, did we miss our meeting? Oh goodness, don't do that. That is the fastest way to get off of people's email lists, or get people to unsubscribe from your email list. It's really annoying as a consumer when you get those emails. So take a look at what makes a difference for you and what really makes you angry when you're looking at your emails, and kind of bring that into writing your subject lines and how those would affect you. Look at the subject lines that work for your audience. When you have a high open rate, which we'll talk about in a moment, then look at that subject line and start repeating it. Believe it or not, the numbers thing, it works consistently over time. And you can know that you're being tricked by the number to open the email and you still do it. So numbers are consistently a good thing. Make sure you do send out timely emails, can keep a consideration of those times. So those are the big 3 factors there. If you are having low clicks, make sure your call to action is strong, using a button perhaps that is well positioned with some large text in it and a very clear click here, or touch here, or take me to the sale, or whatever. Use very clear language that tells people exactly what they need to do. Another reason for low clicks is because it got lost in the content of the email. So that goes back to that keeping your email concise. Make sure you keep your emails pretty short in order to really improve that click-through rate. Do not have more than 3 things for them to click on. Now, when I say 3 things, I'm going to tell you that it's a best practice to always make your images linkable to something. So if your logo is in your email, when people click on your logo, they should go to your website. Now, only a very few people are going to do it, but that 1 or 2 people that do, it might make a difference. So make sure that's clickable. That does not count as a call to action. When we're talking about calls to action, we're talking about things that you want to do. So you have a product, you want them to click on the product or the button to go to your website to buy the product or the button. If you're a service-oriented business, you want them to click on the link to make an appointment with you for a phone call. That's your call to action. Or if you are, if you're a nonprofit, you want them to donate. So click here to donate. That's what I'm talking about with calls to action. And you should only really have 1, no more than 2, and definitely no more than 3 calls to action per email. And you should try to keep the decisions for those links down a little bit, under 5. So let's say you want them to donate for your nonprofit. Maybe you have a donate button at the top, a donate button at the bottom. Then maybe 1 other link to learn about your current program offerings. So that would be 2 calls to action, because we have the donate and learn more, and then it would be 3 buttons or links inside your email. So links under 5, calls to action under 3, the fewer the better for both of them. Okay. When you have a high open rate, there's some things you need to take note of. What time of day did you send that email that you saw that? Could that be a factor? What are the key words in that subject line in particular? Take a look at that. When you have consistently high opens, also look at the list of people and see if there's 1 person on that list that constantly opens your emails. Those are your super fans. Make them a separate list and send them your best deals, because those are the people that are most likely to help you. Also, make sure you send them out information if you have a referral program. So high opens, take a look at the things that you did that made things work, and repeat those, by the way, until they quit working. And then look at your super fans, see who's there. Also, same thing on the click side. Look for those super clickers, those people that are constantly clicking on things. If you have a lead-based sales system, the people that are clicking on things merit a phone call. So don't just depend completely on your email to convert them. If you see them clicking a lot, pick the phone up. Now, you don't have to tell them you're cyber stalking them and say, hey, I've noticed you've clicked on everything in our emails. But just reach out and ask them if there's anything more that you can do for them. Make sure that you look about how your links are formatted, because that obviously is working for your audience. Are you using more buttons or text links? And then also take those super clickers and make them into a separate list and offer them preferred content or discounts that you can see and kind of test if there's something that you could do that was even better. So to wrap this whole thing up, I want to go over what would be an ideal email. In the subject line, you're going to keep it short, 8 words or fewer, 35 characters or fewer, something that has value. Make sure you include your business name in the from name. Include, that is, if people recognize you as your business, or the person's name, most recognizable. Pre-header text is what shows up underneath the subject line in a lot of email browsers today. So utilize that to really give people a reason to open this email. Make your logo clickable to your website. Always, always, always. Use images, but don't use a lot of them. So keep it to 3 or fewer images. You'll notice that this email that we're looking at is fewer than 2 screenfuls on a desktop, and it would probably be about the same on a phone. Make sure that your most relevant content is above the fold and it doesn't have a lot of reading involved with it in order to get people to take action. You should keep your total email to about 20 lines or less of text. Make sure you include a clear call to action. So sign up today is the button here. People can get that that's what they need to touch or click on to go to the next phase of things. Minimize the number of links. 1 is best. After 3, they drop off significantly. 5 would be the top end. Make sure this email is branded so that the colors, the look, the feel, the language, the logo, all of it looks like you and your business. That is a must do to make sure that people really resonate that this is legitimate and it is from you. So we've looked at what the best qualities are for a marketing email, how to kind of set up your marketing strategy, email marketing strategy for success. And we've talked extensively about open rates, click-through rates, bounces, and unsubscribes, all of which are metrics you're going to find very easily. And then we've also talked extensively about how to structure your emails so that they can really maximize the metrics for your email marketing program. I hope you found this webinar useful and that you're going to be able to take some of this information and go make some better marketing decisions in your email marketing program. I'm going to leave the chat area open for about 10 minutes, and I'm more than happy to, via typing back to you, answer any kind of questions that you might have from the webinar content. But I'm going to go ahead and close the window down and let you guys go. If you want to leave, that's the end of the content. Thank you again for attending today. Again, I hope you got something out of this that you can take back and really use. Feedback, of course, is always welcome in the chat area as well. If you would like to see a recording of this email, recording of this email. I've said email too many times. A recording of this webinar, if you do not get it, it's supposed to auto send it. Sometimes GoToWebinar doesn't always do that, or I don't click the right button. We'll blame it on me too. Please feel free to drop me an email and I'll be happy to get the recording sent out to you. Thanks so much. Have a great day.